Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey is always top shelf. Whether you got your start as a Dynasty veteran, a Millbury survivor, or you were born into the Church of Trotz, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, here are your eclectic hosts, Sean Cuthbert and Christian Arnold.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Monday, April 19th, 2021, coming at you live from the Hockey Night New York studios on Long Island. Another spectacular show coming your way here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Andrew Gross of Newsday will be joining Christian and I. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, as always, is Christian Arnold. Christian, how are you?
Well, I'm doing very well, Sean. Thanks for asking.
That's great to hear, buddy.
How are you?
I'm doing all right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it.
I'm doing okay. Yeah, you know, life's pretty good. The weather's getting better.
The weather
Continues
is
to get
getting better.
warmer and sunnier.
Feels like
that.
playoff season.
It does. It
Feels
does.
like playoff season. And technically, it probably would be playoff season right now if this was any other year.
More or less. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd pretty much be right there. But on account of the wacky world that we live in right now,
Yes.
the schedule has been changed a little bit. But we're almost there, and it's playoff-style hockey now because you got the teams up at the top crunching together, and we got plenty to talk about as far as that goes. But before we do, I want to remind everybody that we are happy to be sponsored by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. Head on over for great food, great people, and fantastic service. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. We're also happy to be sponsored by Tide Technology, a voice-over IP company providing phone services for businesses across the country. If you're tired of dealing with long hold time from businesses such as Spectrum, Verizon, and Optimum, give Tide Technology a call at 516, and my sheet is cut off. 516-856-7800 for 3 free months of service. So, Christian, you got something?
Well, if you ever thought we weren't live, there's another example.
We're live.
We're live.
The notes got cut off, but here we are. And, buddy, the Isles dropped 2 to Boston late in the week. They had a little bit of a break. We talked about this before we went live. And previously, they usually did okay, if not very well, after a little break. This time didn't go their way. They dropped 2 in a row, back-to-back games to the Boston Bruins. And if you've been an Islander fan for the past few years, you know that under Barry Trotz, they do very well, at least in the back end of back-to-backs, but it was not the case this time either. And then they play Philly last night, and they kind of squeaked by with an overtime win. And it seems like this, if you want to call it poor play or at least struggle that the Islanders are going through right now, continues as we really hit crunch time here for the schedule.
Absolutely, and I think with the Philly game, I think I wrote it in the tweets promoting some of the stories I wrote, that Ilya Sorokin stole the game, Nick Leddy drove the getaway car, and that's essentially what happened on Sunday night in Philadelphia, because the Islanders
Yes.
were not great, to say the least. They were better than they had been in Boston the first night. Probably comparable, I guess, almost to the second game in Boston a little bit there. They finally got things going in the third period, putting some pressure on Brian Elliott, who looked like a Vezina candidate against the Islanders for most of the 60-plus minute affair. And it seemed like that the only way that there was a goal that was going to be scored was either if Ilya Sorokin or Brian Elliott actually went out and tried to score it themselves, or the way that Nick Leddy did score, and that was just the most bizarre, wacky finish, but fitting for that game because it just felt that was the only way this game was going to end.
No, it was very appropriate. Well, in the sense that that's the style in which I guess the last goal came. I don't think it was how I expected it to go. I kind of thought that the Islanders were going to be happy to come away with a point in this game. I was a little vocal about it on Twitter.
Yes, I think the Islanders owed Ilya a prime rib or something like that, and if they could get 2 points, they'd owe him the mashed potatoes and gravy or something like that.
Yes, a little bit of that. But yeah, I mean, look, it takes a lot for me to really come down on this team, and look, I try to keep things in perspective, which I typically do. Look, it's an 82-game season this year. Obviously, it's 56, but you're not going to play a perfect season. You're going to have rough patches and rough stretches, and every team's go through it, whether you're at the top of the standings or the bottom. We've said this on the show before, and it's just a little – I'm definitely not going to use the word alarming, but
It was disheartening.
it's disheartening. It's a little concerning because the teams around them in the standings, I mean, Boston directly because they played and lost to them twice, but also you look a little further into the rearview mirror, and even the New York Rangers are playing some of their best hockey this season.
Won
And
4 straight.
There you go.
Only a couple points out of a playoff spot.
So they're trying to make a case for themselves. And, now would obviously be a terrible time to have a funk turn into something a little more disastrous. So they really need to pick up this play. And I was hard on them over the game last night because, honestly, I thought they were gonna snap out of it and they were gonna bounce back. They had the night or two off after the night off after the two Boston games. I figured they might have a chance to, kind of reset themselves and play against a Philly team who's kind of been struggling throughout this season. And I thought they were going to take it to them. And I was a little disappointed that they didn't. And it looked a lot of a more of the same, especially in those first two frames. They did pick it up a little bit in the third, but I think overall it was still just a sloppy game overall. They're not playing to their identity. A lot of turnovers, a lot of unforced turnovers. The passing was very inaccurate, and they just didn't look like themselves. They didn't look like the New York Islanders under Barry Trotz.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing because they haven't looked like the same team. Even if you go back before the break, it was kind of the same story we've been talking about. They just didn't look as in sync. And it was an issue that the Islanders kind of went through last year after the trade deadline. You saw that they bring in Andy Green, they bring in J.G. Pageau, big additions that eventually became such important, crucial parts of their playoff run during the summer. But in that moment, you saw a team that kind of looked discombobulated. And you're almost seeing an almost mirror style of what happened last year before the pandemic pause to what's going on right now. And it is an interesting turn of events. And I don't necessarily think there's a correlation between the skill set and the type of players that they're bringing in, but it certainly is. I think as several players used, a bit of a coincidence that this is all kind of happening in a similar style.
It certainly scratches that memory, right, of last year because they had a similar run early in the season. They end up going on a tear. It looks like they're going to coast through the rest of the year, and then they just hit a wall.
Yeah,
and then it's like, wow, are these guys even going to make the playoffs? And we'll never know for sure. But that pause could have ended up being a godsend for that team last year because it could have continued. They might have missed the playoffs, and we'd be having much different conversations over these these past couple of months since the offseason and since the season started. So, it worked out well for them, but this is something that they kind of have to nip in the bud. I mean, this has been talked about before, pucks even hit the ice this year, was that this division was going to be super tough, and it has been. And maybe, some expectations have been different as far as, who you might have thought were going to be at the top, who you might have thought were going to be competing and whatnot. But the bottom line is you still have four top teams there that are going to be scratching and clawing until the end. And now you have a fifth one coming up the rear here who might actually end up having something to say.
Right, yeah. And I think that it points to that. I mean, these are tough teams. You knew these games were going to be playoff-style games even before you saw where things shook out when you were looking at the schedule at the beginning of the season. I think that's kind of what you're seeing. The Islanders are now being pushed against a lot harder than they have been before, and it has been a grind. Aside from that stretch of games in early February where they had the week or so off because of the COVID issues with the Buffalo Sabres that impacted their schedule, the Islanders and the rest of the league haven't had a ton of time. And I think as Barry Trotz has been pointing out, you're seeing some of that impact some of the younger players who aren't used to the grind. The Oliver Wallstroms and the Noah Dobsons. Obviously, Dobson didn't play on Sunday, which caused a lot of ire among some of the fan base. And you certainly understand that. But at the same time, when you listen to Barry Trotz and where he's coming from, and I know people don't like the fact that he is a little harder and holds the younger players to a standard that maybe he doesn't necessarily hold other players too that have a little more veteran experience, and there's something to be said for that. But when you're looking at that, you're certainly sensing maybe there is a point. Maybe the grind, especially of the shortened season and how condensed the schedule is getting to this team. Now, I saw in the chat just briefly before that people were suggesting perhaps it's because of the COVID shots. I know that it was put out there that the Islanders have, players have gotten at least their first shot, it sounds like, according to Arthur Staple of The Athletic, who was on last week, that a number of players had gotten it. I don't think that's the case because this, I would imagine, is probably something that predates any of these guys getting the COVID shot. And again, as we talked about, this is almost identical to what happened last year, even before we had any sort of issue with this thing. Now, Noah Dobson, again, a couple of people pointed out perhaps that they're trying to ease him back into the rhythm of things, especially after having COVID, and perhaps there's some after effects that have impacted him. You've certainly heard from other players that they've felt after effects that have impacted their play. So maybe that's what's going on here too, playing into a factor into why he wasn't in the lineup. But I just think the Islanders are facing their toughest task when they're playing all these teams that are desperate for whether it's positioning, whether it's fighting to make sure they maintain a playoff spot. I mean, they're coming up against a New York Rangers team that's won 4 straight games. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10.
Yep.
I mean, this is a team playing their best hockey of the entire year, perhaps since the start of the season. Boston was eventually going to get it together.
Yes.
You couldn't imagine.
No, for sure. But what I meant to say is that the length of it, how long they were kind of in that lull and how long they were struggling. I feel like we haven't reached that point yet with this team. Like there's still ample opportunity here to just kind of, stop it in its tracks and get back to the hockey that we're more familiar with. And there's just a lot of different, I suppose, elements and factors surrounding it that kind of just make you wonder. I'm sure everybody's wondering, okay, did the trade deadline have anything to do with it? Does bringing in these new guys have anything to do with it? Is there a chemistry factor? Are these guys not pulling their weight? And I don't think you can really, thumb your finger on any one of those things and be like, yeah, that's it. If they hadn't have got Palmieri and Zajac, they'd still be winning.
And
I'm
not suggesting that
I don't
either.
think you are. But I think if anybody kind of has that thought floating in their mind, I think, it might be going a little bit too far here.
Well, I heard it was all Josh Bailey's fault, so.
Oh, it has been.
Yeah, obviously.
It has been for a very long time. but look, we're going to have to pick the discussion up because we got a break for Andrew Gross from Newsday. He's going to be joining us, but we'll talk to him about it. We got plenty of stuff to talk about. They're in a little bit of a rut right now, but they still got a chance to come out of it,
Yeah, and I mean, at this point in the season, to end on a positive note, I don't see them falling out of a playoff spot. It's more or less where they're going to land in the positioning factor.
Yes.
Was it going to be 1, 2, or 3, or 1 or 2, or is it going to be 3 or 4?
Right.
So,
I think you're on the money, pal. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. We're going to take that break, and when we come back, Andrew Gross from Newsday will be joining us.
Customer service is the backbone of any great business, and reliable telecommunication is essential to keeping your client base happy. Introducing Thai Technology, a low-cost, flexible internet phone service founded on the idea that every customer deserves exceptional service while providing simple setup and management and easy integration to clients across the country. Thai Technology will not only create a custom solution tailored to your specific needs, but will partner with you to provide a competitive edge to you and your clients. And if you need support, you won't be routed to an automated call center in another country. You'll get a live representative that had a personal hand in building your account. So Islander fans, if your business is looking for a change from companies like Spectrum, Verizon, or Optimum, Thai Technology is offering 3 free months of service for any of its affordable packages. Just call 516-856-7800. That's 516-856-7800. Or visit them on the web at thaitechnology.com. That's Thai, T-I-E, technology.com. Thai Technology, the right choice for your internet phone service.
The only thing better than a great Long Island deli is a great Long Island deli run by die-hard Islander fans. Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, will make any Islander fan feel right at home with its familiar blue and orange theme and Isles decor. Blue Line Deli and Bagels proudly serves Bagel Boss bagels, along with breakfast favorites, hockey-themed heroes, quesadillas, salads, fresh-made smoothies, and much more. So stop on in for delicious food, a clean atmosphere, and a happy staff ready to greet you with friendly service no matter what team you support. Want to place an order for pickup? Call 631-944-3222 or visit BlueLineDeli.com to check out the menu and order online. Blue Line Deli and Bagels, where the great selections will have you saying, yes, yes, yes.
Sean Cuthbert, as always, joining us online, brought to you by our friends over at Thai Technology, is the New York Islanders beat writer for Newsday, also the host of the Island Ice podcast?
Island Ice podcast, buddy.
Which actually just dropped today. So after you listen to Hockey Night in New York, watch it on twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY, and then listen again on Spotify or any other podcasting source. You can then go, and we give you permission to go listen to Andrew's podcast, Island Ice, with his guest, Pierre Maguire, on this week's edition of the podcast. Andrew does a great job. So Andrew, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Christian, Sean, great to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
Any time. And I was gonna try and do the introduction that you do for Island Ice, but I could not I could not muster up the vocal courage to try and mimic it, because you have certainly created a legendary intro in and itself in the Islanders podcast realm. So I wasn't even going to try.
Well, two things. One, you could just listen to any of the Mike and the Mad Dog, listen to Chris Russo's intro. And two, you should hear my family going around the house making fun of me every time I try and record a podcast with someone else in the house. So
Nice.
it's, I should probably just do a cold open like, Walter Cronkite or something. Hello, everybody. And now the Islander news.
There you go.
Certainly wouldn't be the same, but there is a lot of Islander news to talk about, Andrew. Obviously, a 3-game road trip for the Islanders that was, I would say, less than ideal for what Barry Trotz and the rest of the team would have hoped for coming out of it. They get a win in Philadelphia, but 2 ugly losses in Boston, and a lot of questions as to where the Islanders' offense has gone over the last couple games. Andrew, I guess to start with that question, obviously a very loaded question, but where has the Islanders' offense gone over these last couple games?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are pretty stark. I mean, I'm no math major or anything, but that's 11 goals over 8 games. I mean, that's not going to get it done. That's 1.4 goals per game. And look, Ilya Sorokin once again stole them 2 points last night. They probably have no business winning that game, and a 1-0 game, you can look at it like, well, at least, they played well defensively. I mean, the Flyers got up and down the ice pretty much at will there for a while. And it was only because Sorokin, certainly in the first period, that, it was even 0-0 after 20 minutes. But as to where the offense has gone, I ran some numbers again, before and after Anders Lee, and they were averaging 3 goals per game with Anders Lee in the lineup, and now they're down to 2.6, and actually it's a little bit lower. I did those numbers before the Flyers game.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going into the Flyer game, they were down to 2.6 goals per game, and if you think about it, it's even worse than that, not only because they only won 1-0 on Sunday, but you're including an 8-4 win over the Capitals in there. So you take out those 8 goals, and what do you've probably dropped a full goal, taking out that 8-4 game and probably including last night's game. You're probably down, 70.75 to a full goal since Anders Lee has left the lineup. And, there's more to it than that. The power play has just, what are they, 2 for 19 now? I think it's over 8 games, if my memory serves. The power play was pretty brutal up in Boston, 0 for 8 in those 2 games. They're not doing themselves any favors. And I think it goes beyond the fact that, you're trying to incorporate 2 people into the lineup, and Barry's had to try and figure out some new line combinations. I don't think that is necessarily the case. I think they need to be more proactive in the offensive zone.
Andrew, I mean, I'm not sure what's more astonishing, the offensive numbers that the Islanders have been putting up, or the fact that your mathematics, putting those all together, because I've seen you try and do math. That was pretty impressive. I'm very
He said
impressed.
he's no mathematician, but there he goes, spouting them out.
I'm impressed. I've seen Andrew try and do math in the press box. It's it's a sight.
Let's face it, that was 2 all-nighters back to back trying to work that all out.
Amazing.
That is incredible. Andrew, you mentioned the power play, and one thing that stood out to me the other day during Barry's press conference, I believe is the pregame press conference ahead of Sunday's game against Philadelphia, was the almost admission of where the Islanders' power play stands, and kind of the idea that it's there to essentially not lose them games, but it isn't going to win them games. I feel like it's very rare you ever hear a coach kind of admit that outright, but there Barry Trotz was kind of admitting that to us on Sunday afternoon. I mean, what did you make of that? And is there any way for the Islanders' power play to get any better?
No, I don't know if you heard that thud when he said that, but that was me falling off my chair. I mean, for a coach to admit that, the power play, and he said, it's been since he's been there, and I was like, Barry gets, he has a lot of whatever the word is, goodwill in the tank because of the coaching career he's had over 21 seasons, the fact that he won a Stanley Cup. And look, let's face it, him and Lou Lamoriello turned around the fortunes of this organization. We can talk all about, some of the good personnel decisions Garth Snow left or made to leave Lou Lamoriello with something to work with. But it went beyond personnel, because the same personnel before Barry and Lou were here under Garth and Dougie Waite, unfortunately, not trying to diss those guys, but the same personnel stunk the year before. Right. So yeah. Barry Trotz deserves a lot of credit here, but 3 years and he's saying we're just trying not to lose games with our power play. That's kind of unacceptable, I think, And, I know you gave a plug to this episode of Island Ice I just posted, and I really appreciate that. But Pierre McGuire and I talk about the Islanders' power play for a long time, and Pierre was saying that, Jim Hiller, who runs the power play and ran it with, under Mike Babcock with the Detroit Red Wings. He was also up, with Babcock in Toronto. It's a matter of Jim Hiller just trying to come up with a different scheme. Now it's late in the season. But what Pierre was saying was, Barry had a really good power play in Washington. Well, yeah, you had not only Ovechkin there, you had Oshie and you had Backstrom and you got Carlson, you got a lot of parts there. And it's up to the coaching staff to come up with a different scheme here. And I'm paraphrasing, Pierre. It's up to the coaching staff to come up with a different scheme, schematics, a system, and to just attack the net differently from what they've been doing, because they can't have a power play that's just out there not to lose and not to lose momentum. I mean, it's like Trent Dilfer is quarterbacking their power play.
Well, I mean, I guess at the very least, Andrew, you appreciate Barry's candor, but yes, you got to agree in the sense that, like, and I'm sure he feels the same sentiment that, of course, it's unacceptable and they're going to work at it. But yeah, it's something that they're going to have to improve if they're going to want to stay in a home ice situation going into the playoffs, and if they want to go deep in the playoffs, they can't just hang on for dear life. And one guy who you're going to want to see assimilating into this power play and hopefully ends up becoming part of the solution is one of the new guys, Kyle Palmieri. What sort of, just because you've had experience with the Devils in the past, maybe you can give us a little more insight than we're used to here at Hockey Night in New York. But what sort of guy, is he going to, what kind of play is he going to add to the power play? What kind of, what can we be looking for out of him as he gets more acclimated to this team and gets more ice time on the power play?
Yeah, and I did get to cover Kyle for a couple of seasons when I was on the New Jersey Devils beat, and that's why I was so strongly advocating before the trade deadline to bring, for Lou to bring Kyle Palmieri over here, because I really did think he was going to fit perfectly into what the Islanders are trying to do. Now, you saw the way he scored on the power play. His one goal with the Islanders was a power play goal, and he just parked himself at the crease and he swatted in a puck. Yeah. And no one is going to replace Anders Lee for a lot of different reasons. And that, again, not for the free plug here, but that's another thing Pierre McGuire and I talked about is just, what kind of person Anders Lee is off the ice, right? So you can't replace Lee, but as far as what Kyle Palmieri is as a player, I really enjoy watching him play because he's got, a real snarl to his game. He's a hard skater. He's not afraid, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's, sort of like Pajot. He doesn't back down from anything, and he really annoys the heck out of goalies because he's always around the crease, and he's always not only creating traffic at the crease, he's creating contact at the crease. I remember there was one game up in Montreal I was covering, the Devils and the Canadiens, and I don't know if you remember this one, but that was the game where Palmieri ticked off Carey Price so much that Palmieri was down on the ice, and Price just jumped on top of him and started trying to stab him with his blocker.
Oh, that does sound familiar, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, and Kyle, Kyle after the game said, I never thought I would find this out, but attempted stabbing by a goalie blocker really hurt, But he annoyed Carey Price to the point where Carey Price broke. And, I know Carey Price is very sensitive because, in another, going 2 jobs previous when I covered the Rangers, I was at that game when Chris Kreider took Carey Price out of the playoffs. So I get that Carey Price is sensitive to contact. But my point is that, that's the kind of game that Kyle Palmieri is gonna bring. And when he's going on the power play, he's gonna be right around the net, and he's gonna smack in goals, sort of like Anders Lee did.
We're talking to Andrew Gross of Newsday on the line, brought to you by Ty Technology. Well, Andrew, I know it's still a small sample size, but what do you make of Palmieri's play so far, and by extension, Zajac, the 2 Devils that have come over so far?
Yeah, it's been okay. It's sort of been like the whole team. I don't think you can say they've stood out. I know it's a tougher transition for Trav. He played 1,000 games, 1,024 games in the Devils uniform. And again, I know Travis. I sort of know him personally from, covering that team. That was a guy who, he got to a certain point. He expected to retire with the Devils.
Uh-oh. It sounds like we lost Andrew. I don't know if you heard it on your end, but I certainly did on my end.
We'll work to get him back on the line, but we are obviously on the line talking with Andrew Gross as Sean works to get him back on the phone here on Hockey Night in New York. Of course, you can. This is live. Never pretend like this isn't live because it certainly is.
I think we got him back.
Andrew, we got you back.
Yeah. I swear to God, I did not do, something my mom does all the time.
You didn't have to hang up on us, Andrew. That's pretty messed up, man.
That was not me. That was not me. I don't want to, I love my mom, but some of my conversations with her take like 4 callbacks as she's trying to figure out his cell phone. So.
Andrew, if you weren't enjoying the conversation, you could have just said so.
You know what it is? He got his plugs in for Island Ice, and then he was done.
Just skipped town.
He was done.
Unbelievable. All right.
No. I was making a brilliant point about Travis. So
please continue.
No, the point is the transition. I think Travis, it's been a tough transition for him, just emotionally probably, and I know he accepted the trade. But the whole team has just seemed, kind of a step and a half out of whack. And I think that goes before the trade. So I don't want to throw this all on Kyle and Travis's feet, because you saw Braden Coburn go into the lineup on Sunday, and that seemed pretty seamless. I mean, yeah, they didn't play a great defensive game, but I think it was the exact same game that would have been played if Noah Dobson was in the lineup. I do think, I think Kyle's going to get going. I know his goals have been down. They were down with the Devils before coming in, but I still have a lot of faith in Kyle. I'm interested to see when Barry pulls the trigger and tries him out with Matthew Barzal, because I think that's coming at a certain point.
Yeah.
I think what's holding it back right now is if you put, Palms up there and you still have Jordan Everly, you got 3 right-handers, and that can be a little unwieldy, although they've done it, right? But I think that might be holding him back at this moment. But at some point, I think you're going to have to try and see what Palms can do with Matthew Barzal and see if that works.
This is Hockey Night in New York. Christian Earl and Sean Cuthbert with you as always. And on the line, or I should say still on the line, is Andrew Gross.
Back on the line.
New York Islanders beat writer for Newsday. Also the host of the Island Ice podcast, brought to you by Newsday as well. And Andrew, you mentioned Noah Dobson and Braden Coburn getting into the lineup. Now, my question isn't about Coburn, it's about Noah Dobson, because I'm sure if your mentions looked anything like mine the other day, that the world was coming to an end, and there was a lot of confusion and disdain for the fact that Coburn was coming in place of Noah Dobson. And I think my question is more or less the bigger question that I feel like I know I get it, I'm sure you probably get it as well, and that is, why does Barry Trotz seem to hold the younger kids, the Oliver Wallstroms, the Noah Dobsons, to, I guess, a different standard than some of the veterans when you look at the way they've played over the course of this season? I was wondering if you had any insight as to why that is, that you could provide people, and maybe we could not get a million mentions every time something like this happens.
Yeah, there are two things. One, Barry, and you've heard Barry say sweat equity a lot,
yes.
right? He talks about sweat equity, and that's something, it's basically a trust that veterans build with him. There is a much bigger sample size that Barry has with those veterans, and you know the saying, not to throw out a million cliches, but you eventually play to the back of your baseball card, right? So Barry sort of knows what he's going to get over the long haul with these guys, and the guys that have been with him, he's going to stick with. Now, the other thing with that, and I got a question on my, it was kind of worded, pretty, pointedly, which is, why does Barry Trotz not hold his players accountable? Which I did not think was the case, but I understood where the question was coming from. How come, just to pick on Josh Bailey, because if you've been on social media, Josh Bailey is not a social media favorite, right? Or Scott Mayfield, because the question is on social media is, why it's okay for Braden Coburn to come in. That's fine. But why is it Noah Dobson coming out and not Scott Mayfield? I'm sure you guys saw the same thing I did, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And so, it's based on that sweat equity where Barry has a trust in these guys, and that even if they have a bad game or a bad period or a bad shift, Barry expects them to play back to what's on the back of their baseball card. On the other, the other factor here is the way Barry tries to nurture his young players, and I know it's seen from the outside as Barry not trusting the players, but really it's trying to build them up. And Barry's talked about the fact that Oliver Wallstrom has not gone through the grind of a full NHL season before. He played college where you play on the weekends, or he played in Europe at the beginning of the year where they only play a couple of games. This 4 or 5 games per week is something foreign to them. And you can play, the young players can play well through a stretch of this, but Barry thinks it's good to pull back on the reins, from time to time, or loosen the reins, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, ease them through this burden and or this grind. And you heard Barry talking after the game on Sunday that he's not seen a lot from Oliver Wallstrom, and you just go through the game notes. Wally's gone 9 games without a point, and I know Oliver's defense has improved, but you got him on the ice because he's a sniper and a sharpshooter, and you need goals and points from him. You just do. So, he's giving Wallstrom a little bit of a breather, or I expect him to here. And the same thing with Dobson. As much as we picked on Scott Mayfield's mistakes in Boston in that 3-0 game, because they were pretty apparent on the first 2 Bruins goals, that Scott was out of position. If you go through the game tape, Noah was struggling through that game as well. And I think Barry is looking at the trends, and I think he sees a young player who just needs a little bit of a breather. And that's what you got Braden Coburn. Now, I don't expect Noah to be out of the lineup, for more than, say, 2 games or 3 games or whatever it is. But I do think Barry just wants to give Noah a chance to step back and breathe and collect himself, and maybe look at some game tapes and get a little extra work off the ice, since there's virtually no practice time. If you're not in the lineup, you can, skate hard in the morning and go through some heavy drills. So I think, look, it worked with Noah last season. Barry and the coaching staff had a very specific plan on how to get Noah through that rookie season when he was 19, going on 20, and by all rights, he should have been in the AHL. And the only reason he was with the Islanders was because you couldn't send him to the AHL. You either had to keep him or send him back to juniors, and they didn't. They thought going to juniors was going to stunt his development. So they really walked on eggshells with him through last season. He's earned a full-time role, but he still is only 21 in his second NHL season. And I don't think it's an awful idea for him to get a breather here. And I don't think it's going to be awful for Wahlstrom to sit a game or two and take a deep breath and, maybe look at some stuff on video. That being said, with the Islanders' dearth of goals here, I would hope there's a spot to get Kiefer Bellows back in the lineup.
Well, Andrew, you mentioned Kiefer Bellows, so I guess we'll end it with this question here. Is there a chance Bellows gets back in the lineup, especially with the fact that the scoring drought has hit a really, kind of an all-time low at this point right now, especially at a crucial point in the season with, a lot of tough games coming up? Is there a chance we can see Kiefer back in the lineup just to kind of give him another chance out there?
There is a chance. I mean, it depends. I think it would be Michael Dalcal would probably be the guy to come out of the lineup if you're getting Kiefer back in. And that's even with, I don't expect Josh Bailey or Cal Clutterbuck to be available tomorrow. I don't know how long they're out, but when you start hearing Barry waver between day to day and week to week, I don't figure that it's going to be tomorrow that those two are back. But, and another social media darling we can talk about, Leo Komarov. Look, Barry's not taking Leo out of the lineup after the game Leo played on Sunday. I mean, Leo legitimately was their best forward. I mean, and that's easy to say in a game where you literally created very few scoring chances. You had some odd man rushes, but the way he back-checked, the way he was on the forecheck, the way he was on the walls, and the way he was responsible with Matthew Barzal turning the puck over left and right, you're not taking Leo out right now. And the second best quote, Barry has had two winners of quotes, in the past few days. One being, we just don't want the power play to lose games for us.
Right.
And after the game last night, basically, just pooping all over the analytics crowd when it comes to Leo Komarov, just like, stop with the analytics. Just watch his game. I know, of course, he sucks,
Love it.
The great Andrew Gross from Newsday. He covers the New York Islanders for Newsday. You can also check him out on the Island Ice podcast. Again, we forewarn you, if you do listen to the Island Ice podcast, you are required to watch Hockey Night in New York on twitch.tv/Hockey Night NY.
Yes.
Listen to us on your favorite podcast provider.
Yes.
And then you have our permission to go listen to Island Ice.
Yes.
Great guest this week, Pierre Maguire from NBC Sports on with Andrew. And Andrew, I owe you a big thank you for your wing suggestion when I was in Buffalo the other week. That was a great recommendation.
I actually, I can't take full credit for that because I was racking my brain. My daughter, even though she goes to SUNY Oneonta, is spending a lot of time in Buffalo right now. Her boyfriend is up there, and since you're just going to classes online anyway, why sit in an apartment by yourself in Oneonta when you can be with someone you love in Buffalo? So I did text Phoebe, and between her and Brendan, they came up with the suggestions. So I'm thrilled that you went there.
Yes, and so pass along a thank you from me to them because it was a great suggestion, and thank you from both Sean and I for taking some time today, Andrew, to join us on Hockey Night in New York. We always love having you on, and hopefully we'll have you on again real soon.
Well, actually, here's what I was thinking. I know you're trying to get rid of me here, but I like, because I'm not this free and and freewheeling on my own podcast. I tend to be a little bit more buttoned up or whatever the word, except when Colin Stevenson's on, because Colin and I go way back. But I you know what? I got to get you and Sean on, and we can have this kind of conversation, and people can see the more fun side of me.
Absolutely. We're always looking to plug ourselves, and we'll make sure to plug our own podcast 30 times in the interview.
For
so
sure.
that we get the clicks. So we would love to do that, Andrew. We'll
100%.
definitely have to set that up for sure.
For the record, I kept it under 7 plugs. I counted. I was doing the check marks. The over under was 7. I came in under. So,
well, we appreciate that, and again, we appreciate your time, Andrew. We will definitely set that up. We'll work off the air to make that happen, because that sounds like a fun time. Andrew Gross from Newsday, always a pleasure having you on, my friend, and hopefully I will see you at the Coliseum real soon.
yeah, I will be there. I'm back on Thursday, fully vaccinated.
Wonderful.
There you go.
I cannot wait now.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew.
Yeah. So listen, Sean, Christian, thanks so much for having me. Always great catching up with you, and be well.
Absolutely. You too, Andrew. Take care.
Andrew Gross from Newsday, covers the Islanders, does a phenomenal job there. Again, check out the Island Ice podcast as well after you listen to all of us on all of our different platforms, and follow us on all of our different social medias as well.
I love how you're sticking to that priority. I love
What's
it.
that?
No, you're prioritizing our stuff.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. Well,
love it.
because I've been accused by someone, I won't mention who, I've been accused by someone that I don't support the show enough. So I want to make sure that I'm getting all my plugs and support out there.
Yeah, you're really making up for it in one sitting here.
No, well, that's what I do. I don't support. Well, allegedly, I don't support the show during the week, and then I do it on there.
I bust his chops for not retweeting something once.
Yeah,
Here we go on the show. Maybe we'll have a throwdown in a couple of weeks.
Just a fight.
Yeah, why not?
All right.
So, yeah, great stuff from Andrew.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The one thing I wanted to ask him about, but I was afraid it was going to be another 20-minute answer, was about Ilya Sorokin, and I think there's a conversation to be had. We've covered so much between Leo and Oliver Wahlstrom and Zajac and Palmieri, Palms as he called him. Apparently that's his nickname. Yeah, Palms.
Yes.
I guess when you cover someone for that long, you can start to use the nickname.
It's interesting. You notice that some people in the Islander media are more comfortable using the nicknames, and other people stick to it straight. So I've noticed that Andrew and Chris King.
Well, Kinger's been doing this forever. Yeah.
Yes, but
Kinger
I'm saying,
can do whatever he wants.
Of course he can, but just
very
noting,
happy to see he's back 100%.
Yes,
too,
absolutely.
As well.
But he loves dropping the nicknames all the time. All the time. And Butch does it too.
Yes. But again,
sometimes he makes up
Butch
his own.
and
Like Clutter. I don't know if anybody else calls Cal Clutter by Clutter, but Butch Goring does.
Absolutely.
Which is fine. More power to him.
But what I was getting at is obviously Ilya Sorokin has been such a focus the last couple games. He gets the back-to-back nods over the weekend, in addition to the clutch performance he had against the Philadelphia Flyers. And I think it's certainly raised a question, at least worth having the conversation at this point. Is there a potential goaltender controversy brewing as we hit the stretch run of the as we're in the stretch run of the season, and as we hit the playoffs? Because Sorokin has, if you look at his game and you look at his record, he's fared a little bit better this season, and certainly at this point, he's looked like the better of the two goaltenders.
You know, you raised this with Arthur last week, and I'm still kind of in his corner with it, in that I don't think we're there yet.
I agree, but it's a question worth having, a conversation worth having.
I think it's a great thing that we're even able to be in position to have the conversation. Yes. That means both goalies are performing very well. That means Ilya Sorokin has either met or exceeded expectations, which I guess, since I just mentioned that very thought, what do you think? Do you think
I think he's exceeded expectations, at least in my mind, because I think
maybe a little quicker than we thought.
Yes, because I think that I think we both thought he was going to be a great goaltender.
Yes.
I think that I can't speak for Sean. I'll speak for myself here at this point.
Please.
I assumed it would take a little bit longer for the acclimation period to kind of go through its ups and downs, because you saw him at the start of the year. He gets thrown in right away. We all know the backstory at this point, right? But now he's really come into his own, and that comfort level and that skill set and that lateral movement that he kind of became known for, and those acrobatic saves he kind of became known for in the KHL. You're seeing that more and more, and you're seeing it with more ease. You're seeing it with much more confidence than especially earlier in the season. That comes with time, and that comes with being able to play as many games as possible. And I think that the number of starts that he's gotten has kind of exceeded where I thought he would have been at this point. And I think that the play, his skill set has exceeded where I thought he'd be at this point because he's just looked great.
No, he has, and I agree with you. And I think it's just because he's played so well, and Barry wants to see a little more from him and see what he can do where when he gets the ball and see if he can run with it, because it certainly absolutely has nothing to do with the play of Varlamov.
Right.
That's not the reason why Sorokin's getting more starts, because Varlamov has been outstanding this year. He really has. And I still think he's the 1A to this, 2 potential starter situation here. I still think, agreeing with Arthur, he's going to be the game 1, goalie in the playoffs, barring any injuries or anything like that. But the nice thing is, it's fantastic that if they need to spell him for whatever reason, or maybe in a back-to-back situation like Grice did last year, which Arthur also brought up last week. And, I think these guys are such good buddies and they have so much respect for each other. So there's certainly no goaltending controversy.
No. Well, a controversy in the sense that who's getting in the net and who's not.
I think it's a fair conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's fair because he's played so well. And the nice thing is, and this is something that Islander fans have really been spoiled by now for the last few years, is you really can't go wrong with who you put between the pipes right now, whether it was Lehner and Grice, then Varlamov and Grice, and now Varlamov and Sorokin. And if you're looking long term, when the baton eventually does get passed, whether that's sooner than later, if Lamoriello is going to be, as I suppose excitable as Arthur even mentioned last week as well, I don't think that's going to happen. But if and when it's time to pass the baton, I think people can feel a lot more comfortable with that event happening when it eventually does.
Yeah, I think that obviously we mentioned it last week as well, the conversations about, does Ilya Sorokin need time in the AHL? Should he be playing in Bridgeport?
Remember that?
Yeah, I mean, it is funny to think back to that now, but at the time it kind of seemed like a somewhat of a legitimate conversation, I guess, and it's a good thing that it never came to fruition, because I think that it's done him more good to be in the NHL and getting the reps and getting that time to kind of grow and develop, especially with a goaltender like Semyon Varlamov as your kind of mentor and fellow countryman and someone who can guide you through some of the ups and downs of an NHL season, NHL career. So and that transition from another country. So I think that's done him a world of good. I think that's shown, as you mentioned, that closeness, that bond that they have has helped him grow confidence, and you've seen it in the celebrations that they've had when Varley's won, when Sorokin's won.
Yeah.
You see how much they support each other. So I think that's been they've created such a supportive atmosphere right now that you're seeing his development grow leaps and bounds a lot quicker than I think I thought anyway. And I agree with you. I agree with Arthur and yourself that at the end of the day, Varlamov is the number 1 goaltender, and that the fact that you're getting so many good starts out of Sorokin is kind of that cherry on the cake.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think you should maybe be at a point where you're happy with whoever gets in there.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have their preferences, I suppose. But me personally, I don't, right now, going into tomorrow, going into this week, doesn't matter to me which guy gets between the pipes, because they're both playing really well. Now, if you want to think more on it, like, who do you want to have, make sure you still get reps and stuff like that. Like, I think we're going to see Varlamov tomorrow.
Oh, 100%.
I think he's playing tomorrow because they want to keep the consistency here with both of them getting starts. But again, they're both performing so well where it really doesn't matter. So it's like, that's just something you don't got to worry about. You can worry about Scott Mayfield. You can worry about Leo Komarov and Noah Dobson. I mean, that's where the focus should be. And just how the team is playing right now, because they're not playing very well, despite the fact that they got 2 points from Philly last night.
Listen, Leo's not popular with the fantasy hockey crowd, but this isn't fantasy hockey.
Barry did make a point of that. He certainly did. And look, you know what, though? I will say, I've seen some fans on Twitter actually praising Leo Komarov. Now, I'm sure the minority.
You're going to need to retweet those, because I have not, and I need proof.
No, there has been some calling out saying, hey, you know what, he's actually been doing pretty good for whatever his limitations may be, but he has been playing pretty well.
And maybe that fourth line role is a little bit more of the speed that you want, and you're more comfortable with.
Absolutely.
When it comes to Leo Komarov, I understand the kind of eye roll, and you're like, the frustration with seeing him on the top line, but having him as the fourth line winger in the spot where Clutterbuck would be is not the worst thing in the world. And I think you saw the other game that it suits him well, and when he's in that role and he's in there and succeeding, that good things happen for the Islanders. And as Arthur Andrew pointed out, and so many others the other night, he was one of their best players on the ice, bar none, in a game that was not great from the Islanders. But it was good to see Leo Komarov do well and kind of be recognized for that. So certainly gave him potential to be hero of the week. That's for sure.
Sure. Yeah, you might be able to throw his name in the hat. Whether or not he comes away winning the prize, we'll see. But yeah, I suppose you could throw him in the conversation.
But I think it is the right time to do our heroes of the week.
We are on the same wavelength right now. I was just thinking the same thing.
So why don't you hit that tune?
Hit that tune? You mean this one right here?
That one right there.
And then that screen right there? You want to try it? You want to do it?
No, because I don't.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is the White Whale, made of chicken cutlet, gravy, onion rings, bacon, fresh mutts on a toasted garlic hero. It looks amazing. I haven't had it yet.
It tastes amazing.
Oh, you've had it?
Yeah.
Really? Did it taste like whale?
It did not taste like whale.
It didn't taste like whale. A little false advertising on the part of Blue Line Deli and Bagels.
Tastes like heaven.
Tastes like heaven.
Heaven.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Wow. Very poetic. Look at you. So, folks.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels, which is also an official partner.
That's right. Official partner of the New York Islanders.
Great food, great hockey.
Great food, great hockey.
Yeah, I'm ready
so,
to shirt.
Christian, I think you have the honors this week. I don't remember. I
feel
forget.
like it's pretty anticlimactic at this point.
Yeah, we did just drop a major bomb of a hint there.
Yeah,
If
and
we're
if you
being
can't
honest.
figure it out, well, my hero of the week is.
Do it, man. You can do it.
don't know which
Come
button
on.
it is.
This is your time to shine.
Is it this one?
It literally says Christian Hero on the button.
No, that
You're
says
purposely
flex.
looking at the other one. There he
Ilya
is.
Sorokin, a phenomenal performance the other night against the Philadelphia Flyers, steals the Islanders a win with a 30-save effort in Philadelphia, where he has been phenomenal, by the way. 5 straight wins against the Flyers. He has just found magic in a bottle when it comes to playing the Philadelphia Flyers this year. So
Yes.
he has found his team that he likes to play against. He doesn't know why he likes to play against them, but he's certainly playing in the moment. You see that every game.
Nailed it.
Well, I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said last night when he was asked about it, I believe by our past guest, Andrew Gross, or maybe it was someone else, but about why he did so well against Philadelphia, and he had no answer.
Because there is no answer. And
I know, but sometimes there's an answer. Sometimes
I don't know, maybe, and I might as well just toss
Yeah,
his face up
it's
there
very-
too. For me,
yeah.
he's my hero.
it was
too.
very anticlimactic. Everyone,
Yeah, well,
it would be crazy if we picked anyone else.
It was slim pickings.
Well, that too.
Because of the week that they had.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess if you were going to consider anybody else, maybe it would have been Uncle Leo. But Sorokin, like you said, stole that game last night.
Yes.
Because I said it. They had no business winning that game last night.
No.
As far as the players on the ice in front of him go.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I mean, I had some back and forth on Twitter earlier tonight. They picked it up in the third a little bit. Sure, yes, they did. But overall, they had a bad game.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
They're still a good team.
and they won.
And they won. And yet, that's what good teams do. Speaking of cliches again, right?
I wasn't going to say it, but
Yeah. Well, yes, it's great that they still earned 2 points. And it is kind of funny, though, that they got the second point on a total accident.
I mean, again, it was fitting the way that
Yes.
that game was going to end. There was no other way that it was ending other than someone accidentally putting it into their own
Right.
net, or Ilya Sorokin, or Brian Elliott.
Right.
Brian Elliott putting the puck into the net themselves.
But
as
yes, Ilya Sorokin very much epitomized the phrase giving them a chance to win last night, because that's exactly what they did. He made a lot of highlight reel saves, and he kept them in it when, again, I don't think they really deserved to get to overtime. They were lucky to get 1 point, let alone 2. So you bank those 2 points. You'd be happy about it. You feel good about the fact that the Rangers are still 8 points behind and not 6 heading into tomorrow, because there would be a lot of nerves in Islander land if we were looking at that scenario.
Sean, when you're right, you're right. And right now, you're right.
I'm right.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Whole lot of right going on right now.
Whole lot of right going on.
Whole lot of correct. So, folks, there is your unanimous hero of the week, Ilya Sorokin. And you know what I'm actually going to do here? I'm going to bring that back so that I can read off the half-price hero one more time. So, folks, Ilya Sorokin, your hero of the week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, the White Whale, with chicken cutlet, gravy, onion rings, bacon, fresh mozzarella, on a toasted garlic hero.
Sounds good.
And starting tomorrow,
Yep.
you walk into that beautiful deli.
Yep.
You say, hey, Donnie,
Yep.
Hockey Night in New York said I can get the white whale for half off. Give me that sandwich. Maybe be a little more polite.
Yeah. Be much more
But
polite.
demand it. And just, I want that white whale. And you get it for half off from tomorrow until Sunday.
Absolutely. And since you saved half price on the hero,
Yeah.
you could pick up one of these stylish shirts that Sean is wearing.
There you go.
They're still
Yes.
selling them available. Half of the proceeds go to the Marty Lyons Foundation.
That's
so
right.
Not only will you get a stylish shirt from the Blue Line Deli, support a great deli and business in your local area that is run by a major Islander fan, but you're also helping a good cause as well.
Yeah.
So kill two birds with one stone, so to speak.
There you go. And not just the T-shirt, not only in navy here, but he's got it in the traditional royal blue. I believe he still has some long sleeves. I think he still has some hoodies over there, but you got to go and check it out. I mean, you're going to want to go anyway because they got great food.
Absolutely.
So let's bring it back to the main screen where we're bigger, and here we are.
Yes. You know what? I have one bone to pick with you, Sean.
Please.
And that was, did you understand the Trent Dilfer reference that Andrew made during his...
I actually know that he was a, I don't know if he currently is, but I know he was an NFL head coach, right?
He was a quarterback, if I'm not mistaken.
But I thought he ended up being a coach.
I think so.
You know what?
I don't
It's
think
only
so.
it's appropriate if I am wrong because
I feel like you are wrong.
okay.
So it's
Well,
right-
but hey, at least I got the football right. I knew it was football. That's pretty good. I knew the sport. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just double checking. He was a NFL quarterback for 14 seasons. He did not coach. He did not.
Okay.
Or is
So
not
so
known for
then
coaching.
safe to say I not that it wasn't obvious already, but no, I didn't get the reference. I just the name was familiar and that was about it. But that's all right. You know, the expectations, as you know, are low with me when it comes to that stuff.
They're very low.
You got to keep
They are very low.
your references within the scope of hockey.
I know.
Or like 90s.
But I
other
just wanted to
sports.
point it out that it was wrong. That you were 100%.
Oh, he's the head coach of a high school. See?
There's no way.
I was right.
There's no way Sean knew that, though.
Yes, it was
Luck.
it was
Luck.
what was the name of the school again?
You will not get it. And I saw it on Wikipedia. I will not tell you the name of the school. But, Sean, the fact that you don't understand these other sports
I
references.
wasn't wrong that he was a coach. I
frustrating.
wasn't wrong that he was a coach.
Frustrating.
Why does that frustrate? Why do you care?
It just
Why does that
frustrates
bother
me.
you?
It bothers me.
Why?
It frustrates me because you're just not a. It would make you such a more well-rounded person. Because you're already such a great person. It would make you even better.
Wow. That was very sweet of you. But does it really come down to the amount of sports that you know
Yes.
to round out
Yeah, it
your
does.
individuality, your
It's
personhood,
among many things.
if you will?
Among many things.
Well, then, all
Not
right.
a
Well,
sole
there's a
factor, but
whole
it would help.
sect of
But
the
it would help.
population you're going to be disappointed with because not everybody likes sports, pal.
No,
Hate
that's
to break it to you.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
All right. Off the rails.
Off
One
the
more
rails.
time.
Makes the most.
That was another
sense.
edition of Off the Rails with Christian Arnold.
We should get that sponsored.
Off the Rails with
Yeah.
Christian Arnold of NYI Hockey Now.
But
We'll
then
work on
someone sponsor it. That would be great. Could
Yeah.
make a little, yeah. We
Off
could
the
do it
rails.
every show. Something ridiculous.
Maybe
and off
maybe the
rails.
MTA. Maybe
Maybe
the
the
LIRR. Off the Rails. Or the SEPTA.
Or the
Up in-
SEPTA.
Up in Philly.
But speaking of, well, no, I can't even transition from that. That's sure. The Long Island Railroad. You could take. Nope, got nothing. But looking ahead to this, I was trying to transition. You gave me nothing to work
Failed
with
once
here.
again. I
Yeah.
gave you gold.
You did not.
You
did
plenty.
not.
All right. So
This has
all right,
gone
so
off the
take,
rails.
Take us somewhere.
Getting
please.
getting us back on the rails. The Islanders have 5 very important games coming up over the next 2 weeks. This week alone, 3 important home games on the docket for the New York Islanders, with the Rangers coming to the Nassau Coliseum on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. The Washington Capitals visiting the Coliseum twice on Thursday and Saturday. And obviously some kind of big news as well, and that was the announcement earlier today by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
That the capacity for indoor sporting arenas will be raised from 10% to 25%. So that should bring it about to 3,400.
1/4 of full capacity.
Right, so I think 3,400.
Yeah, you're about there.
For the Nassau Coliseum in time for the playoffs. Obviously,
Perfect
Andrew Cuomo
timing.
was with the Islanders ownership the other week when he was on Long Island at Belmont Park touring the UBS Arena site, construction site with John Ledecky, where he announced that the workers at the UBS Arena, construction workers, will all be vaccinated as they continue to get that right and confirm
Excellent.
that the building will
Excellent.
be open in time for the 2021-2022 NHL season. So Some exciting news in that regard. Some important news in the Islanders' regard here and now, with 3 games coming up against the Washington Capitals, 2 games against the Capitals, and an immediate game against the New York Rangers, which will be all that more important with the Rangers sniffing, trying to get back into the playoff picture, and winners of 7 games over the last 10 and 4 straight now.
Yeah, and the Islanders don't want to be the team that helps them back in. You know, they play them 3 times over these next 6.
Yeah.
You got 3 against the Caps, 3 against the Rangers. The Islanders don't want to be that team. And Twitter will be an absolute tire fire if it goes that route. So let's hope the hockey gods start to shine a little bit brighter again on the New York Islanders, because that'll be a poor experience for all of us. But you mentioned that they're going to be on a 3-game homestand here, so maybe some home cooking is exactly what the doctor ordered given the play they've had recently.
Yes, the Islanders have fared much better on home ice than they have on the road. It's been well documented not only by this show, but other outlets as well. And you hope that home cooking, as you call it, will help them here as they get back into the Nassau Coliseum and they get into the friendly confines of the Nassau Coliseum. And get a couple wins, at least 2 out of 3, take 2 out of these 3 games, especially with Washington within grasp to catch them again and move back into that top slot in the East Division, brought to you by Mass Mutual.
Nice job. You brought it back. Excuse me. Yeah, you lost that for a couple of weeks, the sponsors on the divisions.
Yeah,
you brought it back.
Give it some time.
Corporate Christian.
I mean, they're not paying me, so I'm doing them a favor, if anything.
Yeah, I suppose you are. So, yes, a big stretch of games coming up here. Mm-hmm. It's great that they're going to be home because and look, you throw me off there. We give each other hand signals behind the scenes here. But yeah, big stretch coming up in these games, and look, it can go any which way because they're close enough to first place and home ice.
I don't know why you got thrown off by that.
I wasn't expecting it. You were giving me this face. And I was just like, what? Oh. So, and then you have the other end of it where, look, if they continue to stumble here, all of a sudden,
things get hairy.
You're not worrying about home ice in first place.
No.
You're worrying about whether you're going to make it to the dance. Now, do I think that that's possible? Do I think that that's remotely going to happen? No. They would really have to fall on their faces. But why even flirt with that thought?
I wouldn't if I was them. I certainly wouldn't. Well, I do want to ask you, Sean, and we obviously do this every week, and that is, how many points do you think the Islanders take in this stretch of
yes, the predictions. Well, we got 3 this week, right?
Yes.
In a Hockey Night in New York week.
Yes.
Right, just to clarify that, because the last time I said this week or last week,
I was just giving it a hard time.
Of course.
I had to be a jerk about it, obviously.
Yes, that is part
and
of it.
And make sure, so 3 games, there's 6 points available. Not to mess up our math, which usually I do.
Yes, not 8. They're not 2 1/3 points or whatever the math would work out to be.
No, 8 points are not on the docket.
Right.
6 points.
So you're talking 2 against the Caps and 1 against the Rangers this week, all at home.
Yes.
I'm gonna say.
Yes.
I'm gonna say.
What are you gonna say?
Is this possible? Is this possible?
What are you gonna say?
You know what? I'm usually glass half full, ever the optimist kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm going 3 points. I'm going 3 out of 6 here. I think there's still.
Good.
I think there's. Well, look, it's a 500. It's a 1-1 in 1 week essentially.
Yeah.
However you slice it up, and I think it's because they're still feeling out this funk that they're going through right now. Whether it's still getting the new guys acclimated and how that's filtering throughout the lineup.
Right.
I still don't think that's that's close to the main reason why they've been struggling. But clearly, whether it's that and whatever other factors you want to talk about, they're still trying to get their game back here, right? Sure. And we saw that the break last week didn't really help. So they're getting back to home ice. So I think that will help. But I still think this is going to be maybe not as bumpy,
right?
But a little bit of a bumpy week. So I'm saying they're going to go half. 3 out of 6.
I say they go 4 out of 6. They take the game against the Rangers. They lose the first game against the Capitals on Thursday night at the Nassau Coliseum, and then they rebound with a win at the Nassau Coliseum in the second game against the Capitals.
I hope you're right. But Melville Armenia 22 seems to she's stubborn. She's sticking with it. 6 of 8 points. Can't rule it out. Might be able to happen.
I mean, with the way that the schedule is, these games are all 4-point games, so it could be
they are
6 of 8.
Oh, Yes, you're absolutely right.
Oh,
100%,
brother.
Christian. 100%.
Good times. Good times.
So go ahead.
No. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna just what were you gonna say? What were you gonna say?
I had nothing.
Yeah, nothing. All right, good. So, do we have time to take
off the rails? We're
off the rails with Christian Arnold? So, do we have time to take to field a question or two from the audience?
We fielded.
Fielded. Yeah. So you say your math isn't very good. Apparently, grammar isn't as strong suit either.
We fielded several questions already. Someone did ask about Golashev. I think that's how you say his name.
All right. Well, why don't you round
will
them up?
we see Golashev this year? And I don't think so. I don't think so in the NHL anyway.
Right.
AHL, a couple games. I'm sure. Has to imagine without the Sound Tigers schedule in front of me right now that they are not. They have to be down to the wire at this point as far as number of games. I mean, when you're only playing 24 games against the same two teams,
Yeah.
but they all kind of blend together. So maybe not. Who knows? B-Lars89 asking, do you think we see Kiefer Bellows at all during the next stretch? I think it's absolutely possible. I think, as Andrew pointed out, especially if Bailey or Clutterbuck are out of the lineup still, that there's a chance we see him back in there.
I think we do. But if Braden Coburn has taught me anything, my roster predictions are no good, because last week I said if we see Coburn in the lineup, then things are going terribly wrong with the Islanders. Now, things aren't going great, but they're certainly not going terribly wrong. All it took was a rough night or two from Noah Dobson, and there's Coburn right in the lineup. So I was way off the mark with that. I didn't think we were going to see him at all. But I do think that Kiefer Bellows is going to get in there. Who he comes in for, I guess is as good as mine. But, yeah, especially if they continue to struggle. If they continue to struggle scoring goals, Barry's just going to start throwing darts at the wall and seeing what sticks. He's going to see if Kiefer can get in there and jumpstart these guys.
Yeah. Melormenia asking 22 asking any clue what happened to Josh Bailey? The answer is I have no idea.
Well, you would know better than I.
It's undisclosed and it's hard to pinpoint.
He did kind of just mysteriously leave.
But that's the thing. Same thing with Cal Clutterbuck. Both injuries are undisclosed, so you really don't know what the deal is with them. Mm-hmm. So right now,
shrouded in mystery.
It's a state secret.
Yeah.
It's a state secret.
And in that same game, Bailey, he was coming in, what was it, 3-on-2 or 3-on-1 with Barzell and I think Eberle, and he kind of just stumbled and fell. I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
I mean, at this point,
he kind of just tripped over the blue line,
so.
and then he was out of the game not too long after that. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't know. It doesn't sound like it's going to be anything long term for either one of them.
That's the idea, but Barry Trotz wasn't 100% sure. I did ask him about that before Sunday's game, what his time frame or how serious does he feel these injuries are. That's when he indicated day to day. Right now he'd be more comfortable indicating it day to day rather than week to week. But the fact that week to week is still even kind of in the conversation should raise a couple of eyebrows, because you would hope it's just day to day if you're a fan of the New York Islanders. One question we were asked the other day as well, last show, that we didn't get to address that we wanted to, was the question of, will we be doing any live events?
Ah, yes. Very good, Christian. Very good.
I know we'll let you handle that.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were going to continue there. The answer to that question is 100% definitely, absolutely. And we actually were looking at the schedule earlier in the year to see if we could make something work before the regular season closed. Unfortunately, for 1, 2, 3, or 4 reasons or another, we just weren't able to hammer down the right night to be able to make it work. But we are keeping an eye on things, and we are waiting with bated breath to see how the playoff schedule shakes out, because ultimately, ideally, we're going to be looking to do at least one event to start once we get a playoff schedule, and we'll try to figure that out. I would imagine a road game. I mean, you're going to be working all the home games, right? So
yeah.
We're not going to be able to get you involved unless we do like a pre-game show where you can still make it to the Coliseum.
And, of course, we would do any of these events with the utmost care and caution with everything that's going on in the world.
Yes, exactly. And it's good that the numbers are getting better and things are starting to open up. We're at 75% capacity now at bars and restaurants.
Oh, is it? I don't know.
I believe we're at 75.
I saw the 25% arena news, and that's the part of the headline I honed in on because
gotcha. This was like a week or so ago where I think we're at 75%, which is obviously a great number. And we're already talking to some venues about some potential events. So once